As philosopher Biggie Smalls said, "Mo money, mo problems."
The more money you make, the more problems you get.
So let's look at 16 rappers who tried to solve that dilemma by losing all their money in the worst ways possible. Number 16. 6ix9ine. Our first rapper, Tekashi 6ix9ine, started out releasing his raps on SoundCloud. He didn't exactly get critical acclaim, but he had loads of fans, and a lot of money came with it. At his peak, 6ix9ine had at least $8 million.
That's a half a ticket right there.
And he spent it as flashily as he could on extravagant cars, jewelry, and grills. He even dropped $2 million on a McLaren P1. His custom jewelry collection included a platinum My Little Pony chain, encrusted with diamonds and topped with his own hair, supposedly worth $750 grand. But 6ix9ine was caught up in all sorts of gang activity. In 2018, he got arrested on charges that could have seen him locked up until he was 69 years old. So he cut a plea deal and testified against the other members of his gang. His sentence was cut from 47 years to just 2. With 6ix9ine in jail, then house arrest for 2 years, the money stopped coming. And snitches get their sentences seriously reduced may be true, but it doesn't rhyme. 6ix9ine made some enemies, including fellow rappers Jim Jones and Cardi B, who he outed as gang members. 6ix9ine says he got held up by his former gang associates who stole his jewelry, including that 27-karat My Little Pony chain. Then in 2023, he got jumped in the locker room of an LA Fitness and had to get rushed to the hospital. Now that he's free, 6ix9ine is performing again. He collaborated with Nicki Minaj on a #1 hit. According to sources, his actual net worth is around $500,000 at the moment, which, if you think about it, it's not enough to buy any of the crazy chains and grills he's addicted to. He's no millionaire anymore, although he totally claims to be on social media. Unlike our next guy, who apparently learned the lesson. Number 15. Scott Storch. Scott rose even higher and fell even faster. Hip-hop producer Scott Storch worked with artists like Jay-Z, Kanye West, Justin Timberlake, and Beyonce. He stacked up $100 million, but in just 3 years, he'd spent 70 of it.
My monthly overhead for my household and household employees was somewhere in the neighborhood of $1 million a month I was spending.
Storch collected fancy cars until he had 30 of them. He bought a mansion for $10.5 million. Then he dropped $20 million on a 7-bedroom yacht, because I guess his house was full of cars and he needed somewhere to sleep. But his most expensive habit was drugs. And it got so bad, he was getting high instead of working. In 2009, Scott Storch filed for bankruptcy. His mansion went up for auction and got bought by Birdman. We'll get to him later in the video. Storch was arrested a few times and filed for bankruptcy again in 2015. As of 2023, he's working again, but doesn't live like royalty anymore. His net worth is a modest $250,000. He could probably give some business advice to our next rappers, if they take it. Number 14. The Island Boys. The Island Boys are Floridian twins who go by the names Kodiak Red and Fly Soulja. These goofballs got famous in the far-off past of 2021 with their song, "I'm an Island Boy."
I'm an island boy, and I've been trying to make. Oh, I'm an island boy.
It was really more of a viral meme than a song, but the video of them rapping in a hot tub got 9 million views before they deleted it. Of course, before they did, Kevin Hart and Snoop had something to say.
I'm an island boy, and I've been trying to make. Oh, I'm an island boy.
I'm speechless. Two goofballs in the pool.
You know why I'm not speechless?
Why?
Because I'm an island.
Later, however, they turned it into a proper music video. Since then, they've been recording more, songs and getting into feuds with various celebrities like YouTuber Logan Paul. That feud started on Logan Paul's podcast. Paul's co-host, George Janko, tried to give the pair some financial advice. He suggested if they sell their jewelry and invest the money, they could be set for life. The Island Boys didn't appreciate being talked to like well, boys, and they stormed out of the podcast.
No, hold on. No,
This is
hold
a
on.
podcast.
No,
Here, I'm moving for you. I was giving you nice advice, bro.
I agree with that.
Let's hope they're willing to take financial advice from someone. Different sources have estimated their net worth at $700,000, up to as much as $2 million. But in a recent interview, their former manager suggested the Island Boys are completely broke and they owe him $150,000.
They owe me about like $150,000.
From what? Your percentage of the cameo money?
Yeah.
Is that the only money they're bringing in?
Mostly, maybe a little bit on TikTok, but I mean, it's pretty much run dry at this point.
Where'd the money go? Well, if they own all the cars they drive in their videos, that's almost $1 million right there. The Island Boys are still pretty young. They've got lots of time to make money, or crash and burn, or both, just like our next rapper on the list. Number 13, Fat Joe. Fat Joe has been there and done that, and wants to pass on what he learned. He was one of the first East Coast rappers to go solo, hitting it big with Flo Joe in '93. The money went out as fast as it came in. He says, "I took private planes like it was a taxi cab."
The most money I ever lost was flying private planes.
He denied rumors that he owed unpaid taxes to the IRS. But in 2010, Fat Joe had made over $3 million in 2 years, and the IRS came after him for an unpaid tax bill of over $700,000. He paid up, but ended up going to prison for 4 months. You'd think Fat Joe would start doing things differently, but 6 years later, the IRS came after him again, saying he'd skipped out on paying another $1 million.
Woody would have got $1 million, man. His eyes would have, you think $1 million, that's it.
At least he's got a sense of humor about it.
I'm happy to see y'all looking great, y'all shining. Be sure to know, the IRS see you shining too.
Today, Fat Joe's built his network back up to about $6 million. He tries to give young musicians the advice he didn't get coming up.
I do this every day on a daily basis. If I'm in the studio and the other top young rappers there, I sit down with them for an hour. And I let them know, yo, chill, this and this and that.
You see, they don't teach you how to do your taxes in rap school. Come to think of it, they never covered that in YouTube school either. Excuse me, I gotta check something. Whew, okay, where were we? Number 12, Ja Rule. Since his debut in 1999, Ja Rule won 4 Grammys and sold over 30 million records. Ja Rule was involved in a violent feud with Murder Inc. and got arrested on a weapons charge in 2007. Then in 2010, he got arrested again for trying to get a gun illegally. This time, he went to jail for 2 years. And while Ja Rule was beefing with other rappers, guess what he wasn't doing? Paying taxes. While he was on trial, it came out that Ja Rule owed $1 million in taxes. When they let Ja Rule out of prison for the weapon charge, they took him straight to state prison to do 6 more months for tax evasion. After that, Ja Rule helped run an ambitious music festival you might have heard of, the Fire Festival. In 2017, 500 people went to a Caribbean island expecting the music show of a lifetime. But the show didn't happen, and the guests ended up sleeping in disaster relief tents. Ja Rule's co-organizer got convicted of fraud. People who'd gone to the festival sued Ja Rule for $100 million. But that suit got thrown out because the judge said, basically, they couldn't prove it was Ja Rule's fault they'd bought tickets. So Ja Rule made it out of that one without losing everything. Today, he's got about $4 million. Did he learn anything from the Fire Festival? We'll see. Last year, he launched his new business, an NFT platform. But speaking of fraud, number 11, Tyga. Even if you don't know your rappers, you might recognize Tyga as Kylie Jenner's boyfriend on Keeping Up with the Kardashians. It turned out Tyga couldn't keep up. So he just kept buying new stuff instead of paying for his old stuff. In 2016, Tyga got hit for $1.3 million for not paying the rental on a Lamborghini and a Bentley. So, he bought himself a Ferrari and a Rolls Royce, but he didn't pay for those either, and they got repossessed. He got sued by a landlord for skipping a year's worth of rent, and he got sued by a jeweler for over $1 million in jewelry he borrowed without paying. At this point, you wonder if Tyga's even heard of bills, or if he just thinks lawsuits are how people pay for things. Tyga's reportedly worth about $7 million today, though he seems to spend money as fast as he makes it. Will he ever get ahead of his payments? He just bought his new girlfriend, Avril Lavigne, an $80,000 necklace, so probably not. But Tyga's definitely not the biggest rapper to show up on Keeping Up with the Kardashians. That honor goes to number 10, Kanye West. Kanye West, who goes by Ye now, has the honor of being the rapper on the list who lost the most money. Since the 2000s, Ye has been one of the most successful and influential artists alive. In 2022, Ye was the richest rapper in the world, with a net worth of $2 billion, with a B. Although Ye might disagree with that math.
Now you're a $1 billion man walking around the streets. 10 billion, sorry, missed a couple numbers.
Back in 2016, though he tweeted asking Mark Zuckerberg for $1 billion for his projects, since he was $52 million in debt, personally. I guess with Kanye, you never know. He definitely has a history of unpredictable behavior, going back to the beginning of his career. In 2020, he decided to run for president. Since then, a lot of people think he's gone off the deep end. He started aligning himself with Donald Trump, which alienated a lot of fans. Then he started hanging out with anti-Semites and conspiracy nuts, which made him positively toxic. A lot of the companies he'd partnered with ran for the exits. When Adidas yanked its deal with Ye, that wiped out $1.5 billion off his net worth at once. As of 2023, Ye still has about $500 million to his name. So he's fabulously wealthy, but he has a lot farther left to fall if his reputation doesn't cover. For our next rapper, let's go back to something smaller scale. Number 9, Lil' Kim. Lil' Kim's debut album went double platinum in 1996. She proved a woman could be a rap star and not just a dancer in other rappers' videos. In 2002, Lil' Kim bought a mansion in New Jersey for $2.3 million. But then she ran into trouble with the law, and the money slowed down. Lil' Kim was in over her head. She owed over $1 million in taxes and $650,000 on her house. Keeping up with that house and her career, Lil' Kim was spending $2,000 a month on staff, $2,000 on wardrobe, and a whopping $10,000 a month on travel expenses. All those bills, and she was only making $18,000 a month. To stop creditors from taking her house, Lil' Kim filed for bankruptcy. She had to reorganize her finances. In 2019, Lil' Kim said she'd finally gotten things under control, and she withdrew her bankruptcy claim. Today, she only has $500,000 to her name. That's peanuts for a superstar rapper. But you know what? She kept the house, and she's doing better than our next guy. Number 8, Trick Daddy. Trick Daddy came out of Miami in the late 90s. His career took off, and at his peak, he was worth about $6 million. But in the 2010s, the tricks weren't coming as fast as they used to. Trick Daddy released his last mixtape back in 2012. His expenses started catching up with him. Trick Daddy kept going bankrupt, falling behind on his payment plans, and going bankrupt again. In bankruptcy number 3 in 2017, he filed to stop creditors from taking his house. He said he had no cash, nothing in the bank, but he owed $57,000 in child support, $280,000 on the house, and even more in back taxes. Bankruptcy number 4 was in 2022. This time, he was $100,000 underwater on his house and $800,000 in debt overall, with nothing in the bank. Since that bankruptcy, Trick Daddy is scraping by with a net worth of about $150,000. Some people can't seem to turn it around. Could our next rapper? Number 7, Lil Bibby. He released his mixtape in 2013 and started getting buzz while he was still in high school. Now that he was a rapper, he started spending money like he thought he was supposed to. It got to where he was spending $7,000 a month just on clothes to keep up with the Joneses.
And I'm like, man, I'm spending about $6-7 grand at least.
Eventually, fellow rapper Kevin Gates took Lil Bibby aside and explained that this was crazy. Lil Bibby learned that by wearing clothes more than once sometimes, He could keep his monthly clothing budget in the low triple digits. Lil Bibby retired from rapping at the ripe old age of 23 to start his own label with his brother. He also started investing in real estate. Now he says, "I like to make people a lot of money. I got enough knowledge and I've studied this rap stuff. And I got enough relationships to help an artist, help his family. I get a kick out of it because I see how the label does it and my situation. I feel like just helping people."
So I'm only doing this to promote my company, my artists. So, you know, that's what I do it for.
Today, he's got about 10 million to his name. But things could have got a lot worse for Lil Bibby if he hadn't learned to manage his money better. And let's hope he stays out of trouble. Unlike number 6, Da Brat. Shantae Harris, better known as Da Brat. In 1994, her album Functified was the first album by a solo female rapper to sell 1 million copies. She had a great career, working with Lil' Kim, Mariah Carey, Destiny's Child, and more. But in 2007, Da Brat was at a Halloween party at a nightclub when she got into it with a waitress. And by got into it, I mean she whacked the waitress in the head with a glass bottle. That's more than a party foul. Da Brat spent almost 2 years in jail for assault. When she got out, the waitress sued her and won $6.5 million. This is where Da Brat filed for bankruptcy. She told a judge she didn't have $6 million to pay the lawsuit. She didn't even have $1 million. She had $100,000 and owed almost $8 million. A few years later, Da Brat seemed to be doing all right. She came out as bisexual and married businesswoman Jessica Dupart. Da Brat's net worth is currently around $3 million. Maybe her wife can give her investment tips so she doesn't have the same problems as our next rapper. Number 5, Birdman. Byron "Birdman" Williams co-founded Cash Money Records in 1992, and in the 2010s, Forbes magazine called him one of the 5 richest rappers with over $110 million. But when you have that kind of money, everyone wants you to invest in their next thing. And not every rapper knows how to pick a winner. In early 2010, Birdman announced he was starting an oil drilling business. He even got an oil pump jack tattooed on his head to celebrate. But by that March, he'd covered up that tattoo, and the company was nowhere to be found. Then Birdman took out a $12 million loan to start a vodka company. But in 2017, the lender sued him and said he'd use the money to pay his other bills instead of making vodka. That lender ended up taking Birdman's house, the house he bought from Scott Storch, and everything in it, even his platinum records. Birdman had to go back to court to stop them from taking the royalties from his music too. Despite all that though, he's currently sitting on a net worth of $160 million. Our next rapper also made some questionable investments, but could he recover? Number 4, T-Pain. In the 2000s, T-Pain and his auto-tune voice were absolutely everywhere. He was putting out hits of his own. He went platinum alongside Flo Rida. He was on a boat with The Lonely Island. And as we've seen with all our stories so far, once the good times start, they never stop, right?
Everybody before me that I had to look up to, they were just like, no, this is great. Once you start rapping, it's just money all the time. Nothing bad's ever gonna happen. Your family's not gonna come after you. Just rap, and it's just girls and swimming pools after this.
T-Pain made about $40 million, but he wasn't even counting it before he spent it. He spent $2 million at once on a Bugatti, and he started investing in real estate, buying broken down houses so he can fix them up and flip them. Because in 2007, real estate was another party where the good times were never gonna stop.
I think this is the most significant financial crisis in the post-war period.
All right, the Great Recession. All that money in real estate was as good as gone. T-Pain was in financial pain. He says at one point, he had to borrow money just to take his kids to Burger King.
When you say you was broke, you had like $0 broke?
I had to borrow money to get my kids Burger King.
But T-Pain chose that name because of his hard childhood growing up in Tallahassee, and he stuck it out again. He's not as big as he was at his peak, but T-Pain's kept singing. He even won the first season of The Masked Singer. And now he's worth about $10 million. But losing track of your money is a problem as old as rap itself. And one of the rap's biggest financial disasters is also one of its first breakout stars. Number 3. MC Hammer. Stanley Burrell, aka MC Hammer, was on top of the world when his album Please Hammer, Don't Hurt 'Em came out in 1990. MC Hammer was everywhere. He even had a Saturday morning cartoon. MC Hammer had an estimated net worth of $33 million, and the ways he spent it were as wild as you'd expect from the guy who made parachute pants famous. He bought a mansion and spent $30 million tricking it out. The place had a gold hot tub and marble statues, a movie theater, bowling alley, tennis court, basketball court, and baseball field. He had a swimming pool shaped like his signature Hammer pants, and another swimming pool shaped like a swimming pool. With a house like that, I'd never go anywhere. But MC Hammer had 17 luxury cars, 2 helicopters, a jet, and 31 racehorses. He was apparently addicted to modes of transportation. He went around with a 200-person entourage that cost him $500,000 a month. There was no way to keep that up. MC Hammer declared bankruptcy in 1996. He owed money to the hundreds of people, including stores, banks, limo rental companies, lawyers, utilities, and the IRS. And just when you think Hammer had kept his head down long enough, in 2011, the IRS came after him again for almost $780,000 in unpaid taxes, going back to 1996. Today, MC Hammer is estimated to have about $2 million, a far cry from where he was in the 90s. But spending too much is just one way a rapper can go bust. Number 2. DMX. DMX is the only rapper on this list to record 5 #1 albums and file for bankruptcy 3 times. His first album sold 250,000 copies in its first week. He'd end up selling 74 million albums over a 36-year career, but he never got stable enough to enjoy all his earnings. DMX had a rough childhood. He got addicted to hard drugs while he was still a teenager, and he'd been in and out of jail 30 times for different crimes. It's kind of a miracle he had time to rap. He also had 17 children with 11 different women, and that was one habit he couldn't afford. When DMX filed for bankruptcy in 2013, he owed $1.24 million in child support, and he only had $50,000 to pay with. He filed for bankruptcy again in 2016. This time, he owed more than $2 million. He said he didn't have any cash or cars, or even any furniture. Even worse, the IRS came after him for tax fraud. At this point, you knew that one was coming, right? This sad story has a sad ending. DMX relapsed and went to prison. He got out in 2019. 2 years later, he overdosed and died. DMX never wrote a will, so if he had any money, his 17 kids will have a tough time ever getting any. But let's move on from there to our number 1 story. Number 1, 50 Cent. Hardly anyone in the rap game has risen higher, fallen further, or come back stronger. I'm talking about 50 Cent. 50 Cent released his first major label album in 2003 called Get Rich or Die Tryin'. And one thing he can say is he did not die trying. He made enough off that album to buy a 50,000 square foot mansion from Mike Tyson for $4 million. The house had 21 bedrooms and 37 bathrooms. It came with all the necessities, like a racquetball court, a movie theater, and a disco. In 2010, 50 Cent was worth a cool $500 million. He'd gone into a bunch of businesses, earning close to $100 million promoting vitamin water and over $70 million licensing luxury underwear. Then in 2015, he filed for bankruptcy. How did that happen? Well, 50 Cent was a big spender. In an interview with The Guardian, he said, "If you don't want nice things in your life, I don't even want to know you." He drove 4 Chevys, a Rolls-Royce, a Dodge Sprinter, a Suzuki, and a Bentley. But his biggest expense probably came from that house. 37 bathrooms don't clean themselves. It turns out he tried to sell it back in 2007. But remember 2007? T-Pain couldn't sell his houses, and 50 Cent wasn't going to sell his. Not all 50 Cent's businesses panned out either. 50 Cent lost money trying to start a boxing promotion, a movie production company, and a clothing line. But the knockout punch was a series of lawsuits. He feuded with Rick Ross, so he bought and released a sex tape of Ross's girlfriend. She sued him and won $5 million. Then he got sued over a failed deal to make headphones, $2 million. Oh, and he stole the headphone design from someone. Another lawsuit, $17 million. In 2015, 50 Cent owed $32 million and said he only had $23 million. When he filed for bankruptcy, he told the judge most of his cars and bling he showed off were borrowed. In the bankruptcy, he lost most of the rights to his own music, and he ended up suing his own lawyers for making such a bad deal. Since then, 50 Cent's been slowly paying off the rest of his debts, but he released a new album and produced other albums and some TV shows. 50 Cent is back up to $40 million. It's less than a tenth of what he had at his peak. But let's not lose perspective. It's a lot more than 50 cents. That's 16 rappers we just saw rise and fall, and sometimes rise again. I hope we've learned a few lessons, like don't let appearances fool you, and pay your taxes, and try not to get sued too much. But there are always more wild stories coming out of show business. In the next videos, we're going over celebrities who completely destroyed their careers in a matter of seconds. You will even recognize many of them, so click now to watch it. See you there.